Alright, welcome. So today we have ZEUS here. He has been requested to do an updated build video for Season 3, since the last time I did a build video for him was about over a year ago when his kit was slightly different, but his build remained still pretty much the same, as well as compared to other Season 3 builds that I've done. You'll see his build is pretty much similar to most other burst mages. But let's just get right into it, starting with Conquest and starter items. Now, for ZEUS, you could go into either Soulstone or Vampiric Shroud. Both are pretty good starter items. Now, since ZEUS, he does apply charges with his basic attacks, you might find yourself basic attacking more so than other mages, so that way you can actually get a good use out of Soulstone and its passive. Or if you prefer having that 100 HP versus the 100 mana, and you also prefer, being able to sustain yourself, then Vampiric Shroud may be the one for you. Both are pretty good. You could go into either one. It's just up to you and your personal preference. But for now, I'm just going to go into Soulstone and continue with the rest of the build. Now, after you picked up your starter item of choice, it's pretty common for mages playing in the mid-roll to go into a tier 1 item. There's a few different tier 1 items that you can go into right after you picked up your starter item of choice. You can go into either Lost Artifact, then go to your boots of your choice, go back and finish Lost Artifact into either Chronos Pendant if you're looking for cooldown reduction, which I personally like cooldown reduction for my ZEUS, or if you want to go into the very high risk, high reward item, you can go to Doom Orb. What makes this item such a good reward is if you manage to maintain all 50 stacks, this item will grant you a total of 140 magical power for a very, very low cost. However, the risk of running this item is that if you do die with your stacks, you lose half of your stacks. And as well as ZEUS, he's not the most mobile mage out there. He has no real escape except just killing the enemy before he gets killed. So you can run into that. It's your own it's your own risk to go into that. Now, if you don't want to go into that starter item, you can go into, again, a couple other ones. One of them being a Tiny Trinket. It costs a little bit less. So with Tiny Trinket, it's pretty common to build this up into Bancroft's Talon. Now, this Bancroft's Talon item has changed if you haven't been keeping up with patch notes over the course of the maybe a few months or so. The old Bancroft's Talon, you used to be practically dead in order to reap the full benefits of the passive for Bancroft's Talon. However, they have somewhat recently changed that. I'm not really sure when they changed it, but it's somewhat recent. So now you don't have to be fully dead to actually reap the benefits, making it an overall better item for the amount of magical power that you can gain off of its passive. And again, it's fairly cheap, 1860 when you already have Tiny Trinket. So this item has been rising in popularity for melee mages. And for the last tier 1 item that you would pick up after your starter item of choice, it will be the Imperial Helmet. As you can see, 600 gold, so it costs the same exact as the Lost Artifact. And what you do from the Imperial Helmet is you would build it into the Dynasty Plate Helmet. As you can see, if you already have the tier 1 item of this item, it's fairly cheap building into it, only 1100 gold. And what the Dynasty Plate Helmet offers is, while it does look like, which is actually, it is true, you will lose magical power, but what it lacks in magical power compared to Chronos Pendant and Doom Orb and Bancroft's Talon, it gives you flat plus 15 magical penetration. And of course, the physical protection is pretty useful for, let's say, you're getting ganked a lot by the enemy jungler, which is physical. Or maybe the enemy mid laner is like a hunter, like Neith, which is pretty common nowadays to be fighting a physical guy in the mid lane. Or maybe it's a combination of both, and you need that physical protection so that way you just don't get, blown up instantly. So whatever the case is, it's a multi-use item, but one neat fact is here is if you do go into this item, and then you go into Shoes of the Magi, which also offer penetration, you have a nice combination of 25 flat and magical penetration. So for the case of the early game, or as well as you are fighting a mage in which that mage, their magical protection doesn't scale as they level up. For example, on ZEUS here, you notice I am level 20 and my magical protection is only 30. If I go over here and lower my level to level 1, you'll see it's still 30. So if you have Dynasty Plate Helmet and the Pin Boots, you're going to be doing a good amount of damage against mages that are like ZEUS. So it's a pretty good route to go into if you want to go into that. But let's say you don't want to go into either of those different starter ways for your build, and you just want to go from starter item to boots to the rest of your build. That's completely fine. I find that with mages playing in the mid lane role, there's a lot of different starts that you can go into. It's just a matter of personal preference. Like some people might want a lot of burst in their mages, some might prefer a lot of cooldown reduction, some may want to go into like double stacking early on. It's completely fine. It's just up to you on what you want to go with. But for now, I'm going to go back and sell these couple items here, and then I'm just going to go ahead and start with Chronos Pendant, go into the Shoes of Magi. Personally, I really like cooldown reduction, since I find that there's too many cases where you have charges on your enemy and they're really low, but you can't like basic attack them or whatever to finish them off, and you strictly rely on your detonate to finish them off. But by the time your detonate comes off of cooldown, the enemy charges are just, they're gone, and you know, there's too many times where I had that happen, so I really like cooldown reduction to allow me to really secure kills that otherwise would have gone away if I didn't have cooldown reduction for my 3. So yeah, so let's go into Chronos Pendant, go to Shoes of Magi. From here, you can still go into a stacking item of your choice, whether it's Book of Thoth for more mana and a lot more magical power, or let's say you want to be a little bit more tankier, if you will. If you want to have a little more HP and survivability, then you can go into Warlock Sash. But for now, I'm just going to go into Book of Thoth, looking for a very high burst Zeus build. After your stacking item of choice, or maybe you didn't go into a stacking item, in case if you didn't go to a stacking item, maybe you can just go straight into Obsidian Shard and go straight into the Ratahuti. This will be a really quick and easy build if the match is very fast paced and is like ending soon and you just want to rush your core items. It will look something like this, and then the remainder items will be just, you know, whatever you can scoop up at the time. But let's say if it's a more drawn out match and you have time for a stacking item, I'll just go into the Book of Thoth, then go to my pen item. As far as penetration items, the big difference between Spear of Magus and Spear of Desolation and Obsidian Shard. Obsidian Shard is known as a quick burst damage, since you don't have to apply any stacks. It's just instant penetration and a lot more magical power. Then you can pick this up, as well as this item is specifically good against targets that are both naturally tanky, like warriors or guardians, and it's also obviously good against targets no matter their, you know, class or role, if they're building into magical protection. It's also very, very good and the best penetration item to go against if you're looking to do damage against structures like towers and phoenixes, as well as objectives like Gold Fury and Fire Giant. Now, as far as the Spear of Magus, you do have to apply these stacks multiple times to get the most use out of its passive. Zeus can he can sort of do that between, you know, using your 1 to bounce charges and your 2 and your 3 and your ultimate. He can apply multiple damage pretty fast, so you can make use out of this, and it's also seen as the go-to item if you're fighting a lot of targets that are, you know, they're not tanky whatsoever, they're building no protection, and they're mostly like maybe mages or assassins, gods that are pretty squishy. Then you can go into that. Now, as far as Spear of Desolation, this item is only really good if you're on the winning team, you have a huge lead, you're fed, you have tons of gold, then you can go ahead and easily build this item, or you can go ahead and pick this item as like your very last one. Or let's say you want to replace that Doom Orb that you have, you don't want to run the risk of losing all the stacks and all your magical power from that item, then you can sell Doom Orb, pick up Spear of Desolation in its place, and you're good to go. Or maybe you don't like how Bancroft's talent is working out for you, then you can sell that and buy this in that place. But for now, let's just go into Obsidian Shard. And then of course, to finish and top off any burst mage build, it's just to go ahead and buy Ratahuti. The spike on your magical power is just ridiculous. As you can see, I have 325. You buy this and then you have 563, and that's not including going back and selling your starter item whenever you feel like you don't need it, and you could buy another item. Maybe if you want quick and easy magical power, you might invest into a Bancroft's talent, or maybe into a more bursty item like Slow Reaver. Or there's a couple different flavor items that you can go into, and one is definitely Gem of Isolation. So between the slow on your first ability, it's 30% for 2 seconds, you can stack the Gem of Isolation passive on top of that, and that way you can easily control the enemy team, and you can probably apply a lot more stacks, a lot more charges that way as well. Or if you don't want to go into that, and you want to have fun with a little bit more attack speed on your Zeus, just apply just apply your stacks or your charges faster, or just to reap the benefit from your passive. You know, once you have all 3 charges on that one target, your basic attacks will be hitting a lot harder. Then you can probably go into like a demonic grip or something fun like that. As well as a good note, to help counter healers, you can just go to Divine Ruin. He can make pretty good use out of the passive and easily apply it with all of his abilities. But yeah, so you can just finish it off with one of those items. Let's just go into Soul Reaver. This would be a very easy go-to build for a lot of burst damage for Conquest. As far as the boots, normally late game you would sell your pen boots for cooldown reduction. Since in the late game, normally the laning phase is over by then, and you're doing a lot more fights, therefore cooldown reduction will be a lot more helpful. Now, as far as Arena real quickly, obviously for Arena you don't need to go to all those different weird stars that I talked about in the beginning. You just go straight into your boots, and then to the rest of your build. So it'll look something like Shoes of Magi, stack an item, you can still go into it for Arena. It varies, like let's say you want to build Warlock Sash, but there's like 2 or 3 other mages on your team. This is going to be pretty hard to build into those stacks, so Warlock Sash might be the option. You might want to go to Ethereal Staff. Book of Thoth, the stacks aren't all too important as long as you're getting mana from both leveling up and mana from other items. That's what the Book of Thoth passive really just feeds off of. So the stacks aren't too important. So you can go to that if you want to. You can go to cooldown reduction, which I highly recommend for Arena since you're fighting pretty much all the time. The order, again, the order is up to you. You can get Chronos Pendant first, then Book of Thoth, up to you. Then you go to your pen item, and then since Arena doesn't really last too long, you definitely want to get, you know, your core items as soon as possible. And then again, last item could be whatever you want, like Soul Reaver. And that would be pretty much the build for both Arena and Conquest. And again, you can also use that Arena build for casual game modes like Clash. So hopefully it was helpful. Might have been a little bit longer than I wanted to as far as video length wise, but again, hopefully it's helpful, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.